Hello everybody, my name is David Oken, and today we're going to learn about what private set means when you set that on a variable in Swift. First off, we need to discuss what private set actually looks like. Let's say you wanted to set a stored property, and we would call this something like var recording video. We could make it of type bool, and we'll initially set the default value to false. If we were to refer to this variable as private parentheses set, by definition, this would mean that this variable has a setter that is purely private and can only be set by variables or functions in the same scope as it, but it's not accessible to set anything from outside of this. However, you can get this variable from outside of this scope as well. Let's explain a little bit about what that means. For this example, we have two objects we need to take care of. We're looking at my open source camera framework called Lumina, and we have two objects in question. We have something called Lumina View Controller, which is responsible for handling all of the UI that you see on the screen, making sure that we're handling things like rotation and the button that gets tapped whenever you take an image. Conversely, Lumina Camera, and this is responsible for setting everything that has to do with AV foundations, such as video orientation, is the video mirrored, etc. The way this framework works is that Lumina View Controller manages an instance of Lumina Camera. So that means that things can be private on Lumina Camera and it handles itself, whereas Lumina View Controller will not have to take care of that. So in this case, we won't be able to tell whenever Lumina Camera is recording, but the View Controller shouldn't be able to set that. This is logical because if the UI has been responsible for setting off a video recording action, the camera should be able to say, okay, I'm recording, don't bother me while I'm doing my thing. And the View Controller shouldn't be able to change this because the camera should be able to determine when that's over. So if we were to set this kind of variable and we weren't going to put private set on it, we could go down here and we could say something like recording video equals true. Now this means that whenever we've started the video recording from this function, we're saying that, okay, our camera is doing recording video right now. And so you would think, well, that shouldn't be accessible from the View Controller. So if we go here and view a layout subviews, we don't want the UI to be able to rotate whenever we're recording video. So this means we could say if self.camera.recording video is equal to true, then we return early from this. Now, if we try to build this should compile because we are able to get this value and we're able to check it. But there's one problem with this. As we wait here to see if it loads, sure enough, it does work. But the thing is, we don't want to be able to set this from our View Controller. What if somebody else is working on this and they think they can get away with doing something like that? They would be able to do something like self.camera recording video equals false. Now, if we try to build this, you'll see that because we didn't set this at private set, this also compiles, and this means that the View Controller has the ability to change this value if it wanted to. We don't want that. So one thing you could think of is, okay, well, let's go back to our camera, and what if we just made this variable private? Well, we've solved one problem, but we've caused another, because yes, this is private to the scope of Lumina Camera, and everything inside Lumina Camera can access it, but now our View Controller is unable to see this value. And so we can't do anything when we look at this. And it even tells you that it's inaccessible due to the private protection level. The way to solve this is with private set. So in front of private, we can put open parentheses set. And what this will do is this will say, the setter of this is private, and anything inside Lumina Camera can set this, but the variable is still accessible to view or get outside of this. You just can't set it. So if we go back here, you'll see that this compiles. But then if I try to do self.camera.recording video equals false, and we try to compile this, you'll see that we cannot assign to the property because the recording video setter is inaccessible. So this means that you're able to view this property from anywhere that's in the scope of the variable, but you can't set it. This is good for modifying access control on variables that only certain classes should have access to when it comes to being able to set them. So just one more time, you can see that in order to do this, you type private set before a variable, and this doesn't modify the access control of this variable, it just modifies its setter. So if you wanted to, you could still do file private, and you would have an error here because the View Controller can't tell it, but it would properly set the access control of the stored property at file private.